know.
Yo, guys, how we doing? Let's see, we should be live. Boom. How's it going, guys? We are live. We're here tonight with Dentoshi, and this is something I'm looking forward to. And if you've not been tuned into one of my streams before, basically I like to speak to other traders. I like to network with other traders. Just kind of like an intellectual curiosity to understand how they do things, how they look at the markets, how they trade, and then what kind of mindset they have in order to do things consistently, because it's a pretty tough game, right? So I'm also partnered with HyroTrader, crypto prop firm. And if you're looking for more capital to trade with, then use the code TRADERMATT at hyrotrader.com for 10% off all challenges. So we're going to get into a few things tonight, and been looking forward to this since we first spoke. So I'm just going to bring Dentoshi on and should be able to hear you now. Hello, how you doing? Oh, no, it's still muted.
Hello.
Hey.
Yes, there we go. Hey, Matt. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. And also thank you for linking me with Kraken and giving me the opportunity to basically create a free course for everyone as well. So I wanted to say thank you for that publicly too.
Of course.
You're a big part of that. So I appreciate that.
We're assembling a team over there. So much more coming for sure. No, I think this is so nice because I gotta say this to you as well, a compliment right back, that I really respect people that keep streaming through the bear market, because there's not always a lot to say, and sometimes it can be really repetitive. So anyone that, you know, sticks to it, yeah.
Thanks.
Much respect.
Yeah, it's I sometimes feel like bashing my head against the wall, and it's also like you feel like a bit of a broken record, saying like it's going to happen, like it's going to go down soon, like I promise, and then 3 months later, like you look like the
preaching
crack addict.
caution. Yeah, every single time preaching caution and just saying like not yet, not yet. It's just, yeah, it can be frustrating, but also I feel like, you know, we may help some people to not make those mistakes that I have made myself many times. So it's for a good cause, I guess, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it definitely does help when, you know, you've got a bunch of people. I mean, the way that X has changed since, you know, when we first both got on was the same year in 2018. It was a lot more niche back then, and nowadays you're getting paid for engagement and all this kind of stuff, and you've got people just ball posting, and people will blindly follow that, and you know they'll end up buying every dip that keeps dipping. And you know, I hope to sometimes be a voice where I'm like, able to lean on my experience and say, "Oh, just chill a little bit." Like I don't think there's a rush here. I think we've got lower to go, but people
100%.
don't like that as well at the same time. So it is tough to do this for sure.
It is. It's a very humble game in that sense, because sometimes also I'm thinking to myself, like, should I post more just to, stay active and stay vocal? But it's also at some point when the market is not really giving a lot of opportunities, sometimes it can be nice to just scale things down and kind of, repair your nets, as my friend Crypto Amsterdam likes to say. So you can go fishing later is his
I like that.
philosophy, I believe. And I think that makes a lot of sense to me, sometimes scaling back and then scaling up whenever it makes sense.
Yeah, I think for sure people who have been in multiple cycles are definitely able to tell when to risk off a little bit, and that helps in the newer traders. But I suppose there is a balance to strike with it online, that you do it to grow as well, and when it's a situation where it's like you're just down for the past 10 months. Never once. It's like being a bit of a party pooper, isn't it? Like you go into the party and you're like, "Hey, it's over," and like you got to go home now, and people are like, "Shut the
Yeah,
fuck up!" No, it's not. And then yeah, it's
exactly.
it's not an easy thing for sure, but it's
No, and
enjoyable.
also knowing sometimes that you're gonna poop the party for at least another year and a half.
Yeah, I hope it's
That's the
not another
tough
year and a
part with
half.
our markets. No, no, no. I meant just at the start of it. It's funny. I'm sometimes explaining to some of my friends, especially the girls, how you can have sometimes a very busy year and then a year that is not busy at all, and that you still have the same job that during that whole time. And to them, it's like really strange. I actually like it like that, I will say. It makes sense to go really hard at some times, and then it makes sense to not do that also at other times.
Yeah, agreed. I think as well. Like I spoke to Castillo about this a couple of months ago, and we said that building during the bear market is actually a really good thing, because you have all the people that are going to hang around that are serious about the industry and serious about maybe being traders and just like serious about themselves and investing, and it cuts off a lot of the fat of the market participants, and then you get left with the people that are actually kind of vibe with what you're putting out. So I actually prefer it, and I would like a bear market and an accumulation period for a lot longer than we may get, simply for the fact that when it goes to bull market mode, all the arseholes come, and it becomes quite a difficult place to kind of open X each day. Even though everyone's like super bullish, it goes a little bit too much. Do you know what I mean?
100%. But also besides that, I think the opportunities, if you want to swing trades, I don't know if that's your thing. I've seen you do more like lower-ish time frame, medium time frame stuff, but I assume if the bull comes around, you're also, I mean, everyone loves to swing trade in a bull market, obviously. But I think like these times right now are actually really good if you want to do like that research and get ahead, but also, if you're not just a trader and maybe you want to work with companies as well in this industry, like make those connections, kind of do it when the attention is super low, when no one is really watching or taking opportunities away from you. That's the best time to take them, right? But the least competition available as possible, basically.
Yeah, 100%. It's like planting the seeds in the accumulation period, isn't it? And then you just got, as long as you're consistent and as long as you're, you got to be good at it as well. Like you got to be able to read the market as well properly. But as long as you're consistent and, you're going through it, I think you'll see the fruits of your labor. It'll be like a delayed gratification thing, right? It might come in a year and a half or something. But that's the case with anything, even with trading, isn't it? You've got to put the years of hard labor in first before. Well, I mean, there's no real kind of taking your foot off the gas, is there? But you've got the first like learning phase, and then after maybe 4 or 5 years is when you start seeing the results of the work that you had that frustration in the first year and the second year, and then things may get a little bit less stressful in the third year. But as time goes on, yeah, you'll get the fruits of that labor, just as long as you
Of
keep showing
course.
up.
And then for sure. And then there's still setbacks within the time that you think you've already made it, right? I think a lot of people, including probably both of us as well, you think you're a genius and then it all gets slammed down and you realize that maybe it wasn't all me, maybe it was some tailwinds as well. And then coming back from that is kind of like that higher low in life, right? Not just in the charts. I think as long as the trend overall is up over the years, I think that's what a learning curve is. But it has to be a higher low. It can't just be down, you know?
Yeah, and I think if you're going to stick around for the long term anyway, trying to trade through a bear market is necessary education, because you have to kind of realize what the shit conditions are and how you can act in those shit like conditions, and what you should do to protect yourself from the way that you act in those shit conditions. You have to go through it. I think you can't skip it. You can't just like, I think you have to, you go through a rite of passage, and then you realize later on, like, maybe I should not trade the bear market, if you're able to put yourself in a comfortable position from the bull market, and then kind of see the signs. And I don't think those signs are there just yet, about when to start stepping back in
Nope.
and buying and then getting ready. But I'm not sure what your thoughts
Agree.
are on that, about being near a bottom.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I completely agree with what you said about the need to be involved. I think that a lot of people make that joke, right? Like balls tingling. And even though, it sounds like so stupid, in a way, like I do understand what they mean. I think like end of May, we had a little bit of a period of that where it's just like you can just feel it in the charts. You can see it, you can feel it. It's just something that kind of is uplifting in the market at that moment. And to me, as someone that trades momentum, that is the moment that I want to be involved. And that feeling of like such tailwinds, with your trading, if you're someone that chases narratives, which is, mostly longing like me, that's just something that you can only know when or what that is if you have experienced it. And then also the opposite, right? To have experienced the absolute lack of it, which is what we just had for a while, after 1010, I think there was an absolute lack of that tailwinds feeling. And it is really necessary, like you said, that you go through that to have like kind of that difference, to experience that difference. And that makes you place new experiences and a new state of the market in the future. You can place it in a box or kind of on a scale, like how suiting is this for my trading style. And that is what they call intuition. But I think that someone once replied to my tweet and said like intuition is just 1,000 mini experiences and the feedback that they gave you. And I was like, yeah, I kind of agree with that.
Yeah, I think I've heard something similar to that. Actually, it's like you've put yourself in the same situation so many times, and your body kind of remembers the feeling from that previous time. And if that's like approaching a stop loss from a shit trade that you've taken, and you might take another trade, it might be trade number 200, but you might remember, see this, I remember this feeling, the last time I had this feeling, I got stopped
Exactly.
out, and then you just kind of go, maybe I should get out of this, or maybe I shouldn't do this, because I remember that feeling that always comes from this action. And it is just like
100%.
1,000, yeah, like 1,000 iterations of the same thing to kind of maybe master it, I think.
Absolutely. And in regards to your other question about the market bottoming out, I mean, I think we are going towards the tail end of the whole process. Feels like it's been a while. The vibes certainly feel like they've been a while like this. I think we're getting a lot closer. I wouldn't say we're there yet. I personally would love another stab lower on everything. And that's also the scenario that I give the highest probability, as I think you are too, from what I've seen on your timeline. Of course, there's always circumstances that come around on the macro side, or, whatever narrative for our entire industry may happen. That's something we don't have influence over, so that could change things. I'm open to a scenario where we just go sideways and maybe have a reclaim, but it wouldn't be like my high probability scenario. It would just be something that I don't want to rule out, because I don't like to talk in absolutes. Ideally, we get like a nice leg lower, and then that really low volatility periods where it just makes a lot of sense to kind of like build those positions that you're looking for the next time around. If that's even still a thing, holding coins longer than a month, but you get my point.
Yeah, I think it would be really nice if we just, I keep saying to people, like, it'd be really nice if we just dropped, because that will just give everyone so much certainty that the market's dropped. And in the same kind of like realm of saying, if I come on your line and I'm bear posting and I'm the party pooper, it sort of feels like the people that are, every time there's a green candle, like saying, "Oh, like everything's back on," are kind of like the guys at 6 a.m. trying to get the party going again. And it's like, you got to go, man. It kind of feels a
Yeah,
little bit
I
like
know
that,
those
you know?
people. Yeah, about those people, I have a very good intuition, so I know exactly what you mean. No, it is. It's been that low volatility actually for a few weeks now. I was speaking in my last video about the doom range. We've been in it since 5th of June, I see, which seems also very long, almost 2 months. 2 months tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, the market wants to move a little bit now. I mean, ES has been like absolutely crazy. Like that reclaim was insane, new all-time highs, like very impressive candles. And then crypto just kind of being that, that meme with the two dragons that look normal and then one of them looks retarded. That's kind of crypto right now, I guess. And there's just not much we can do about it. We just have to sit it out. That's my opinion. Like whether it's the time-based capitulation that continues or the price-based that does another leg, I'm all for it, both scenarios. I do think we need like a few more months, whichever scenario we choose. And after that, hopefully we can finally do some action, because that's what I like to trade. I like to trade momentum, and right now I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing it very isolated. Something like pump, for instance, could be an example, but still, it's very microscopic if you zoom out.
Yeah, I prefer being bullish. I prefer like trading a bull market as everyone else does. But I also want it to go lower so I can buy lower and then enjoy the bull market. So I don't understand why anyone who wants like to experience a bull market wants to buy at these prices rather than wanting lower. I don't
I mean, I
understand
think
that.
they're just impatient, right? This is one of the biggest challenges of a trader. I'm in a lot of discords with some very talented people that trade size, but still I can also see with them, especially. I wasn't super active this week. It's been really nice weather here, and I've kind of been chilling. So whenever you log in, you really observe the other people's messages and stuff a little bit more objectively versus whenever you're very involved in the market yourself. And I was thinking to myself, like, wow, these people are making a really big deal out of very small candles. I thought, like, did I miss something? And then I looked at the charts and I was like, no, this is like just what we're working with right now, And I guess people just really want the dopamine and they really want to make money, and I get it. Like, I'm a dopamine junkie as well, so I'm not judging at all. But I think that's what it is, to answer your question. The reason why they don't want it to go lower, because they want it now,
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think what was your point? It made me laugh actually. I've forgotten it now. Never mind. But yeah, let's get into this. I wanna see how you actually look at the markets. I know you kind of look at Fibonacci, but I wanna kind of delve into how you look at things and the process of how you trade. So the first chapter of, as I told you about, is Teach Me How You Trade, it's called. So I've got your screen up now, and so if you could just run us through
Perfect.
basically how you look at the markets, how you determine, when to get in, how you determine when not to trade, and just kind of like the parameters which you need in order to kind of trigger an entry for you.
For sure. I mean, you mentioned Fibonacci's. I will say that's something that I will use for Confluence, but my main thing is and has always been EMAs. I'm actually building a educational series with Kraken as we speak on it. The same one that you did on price action, I did on EMA. So if anyone doesn't really know how it works and the what and the why, then more info on that soon. I mean, to me, honestly, any market that is trending is interesting to me. I prefer altcoins because what's really nice about trending markets is that, especially in our industry, they're really often very tightly correlated with narratives. And in crypto, things travel really fast. So that is something that I love to do. A good example could be this near trade I took around here because, we had the Arthur Hayes narrative. There was also some of the stuff with the Near Foundation that was really vibing back then. I will say I'm not a person that really, is dissecting the narrative. I'm more someone that just submits to it whenever I feel like it makes sense. So to me, how I trade is that I love any market that shows that it wants to go. And how would we see that? I mean, I'm sure since you provided the course, basic SR is something that your audience should know, I hope, probably. So in this case with Near, right, we kind of saw that we had those range lows and then a deviation below it. We had like really bearish market structure. And then at some point, we try, we fail, we try again. And then here we can see that we have these highs that are getting flipped. We have our EMAs that are about to be broken. And then from that point, we just really go. And that is something that really interests me. A good example currently that I didn't take, but I was asked about a lot, is Pump. Very nice trade this would have been. I don't know why I missed this. That's definitely just not being sharp in the summer from my end. But this is actually a perfect example of something that I love to trade, where it's like we have a very clear SR. Once again, just super simple, right? It's not really anything arguable about the fact that this is the range low. We have our deviation. Then we even have kind of like that little tree tap situation, which I also love. And then we reclaim, EMA reclaim, and we kind of just go. And this is what is interesting to me, momentum. And preferably, especially in these type of markets, isolated momentum, because kind of makes it easier if there's nothing that's pumping and then there's one thing that suddenly really starts going. And I think throughout, I won't say the next few months, but the months after that, I think slowly but surely we're all going to see a lot of coins making these transitions where they were in a very bearish structure with bearish EMAs, and then now slowly they're kind of like making their way out of the woods. And we can see with something like Near that it's not always that easy, right? We will have like those pumps and then deviations below. But I think if this will show strength again, that's something that I would like to believe. A good example back here was Fartcoin, also something I traded from here to here. Just these really big green candles, like that's kind of what I'm chasing. Because if there is momentum, it should go. And if there isn't momentum, then I'm also a person that really likes to cut my trades pretty early, just because I believe that, if we're trying, it should sustain. And if it doesn't sustain, then it's not what I'm looking for. I think that's a good example and explanation of my process a little bit.
Yeah, it sounds very similar to like my outlook. I'm also chasing momentum as well, and I'll just put my screen on. And
Yes,
today
please.
on Bitcoin, there was actually a really nice example of exactly the
Beautiful.
type of counter. So like this move at it's about the New York Open, where it's hit supply here, and then it rips down, and then you can see, obviously in this candle, we've got the big wick. I don't know. Yeah, there you go. On M3, you've got the big red candles moving down back below all of the lows, coming from a high with strength. And normally I'll see once I've seen that that candle there, that very big one in a trend, I'm like, okay, if this is going to go, you can see like that next candle kind of thinks about it. This next candle here should be red. It should be going because the momentum's kicked in, right? The candles were bigger, we're trending, but then it reverses.
Yep.
And I'm the same. You've got to cut that. You've got to be able to recognize that if you're entering in on momentum, you need to see the momentum. And if you don't, you got to get out. Otherwise, you're going to get exactly
100%.
this, right?
Yeah, as someone said to me the other day, it was about people, but kind of the same thing. He said, like, if someone shows you who they are, you better believe them. And I was like, wow, that's like so simple. And it's the same thing with charts, right? I think, of course, we have seen our fair share of chop around the last weeks, especially if you look at BTC. It's just been like, man, it's been a tough ride ever since kind of like those early July reclaim attempts. Not easy to trade. And what usually happens to me is that I will have a very hot streak of a few winners in a row with like really big percentages. And then I'll have like 1 or 2 losers in a row. And then I just quit trading for a bit, because when it stops working, for me, it's kind of like a sign that the machine needs either, to cool off or has been switched off, one of the two. And because with these narrative trades, especially if you have the right people around you, which in my case, I'm very lucky that I have, I'm in groups with people that are just scanning for narratives like all day. And if you pair that up with charts, I think that's really where the secret sauce kind of comes in. Because if you have a team that's very technical and then the other half of the team is really good with just fundamentals, it can be super valuable. I really recommend everyone to trade with friends sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes you can learn a lot.
Yeah. Like you'll get opportunities that you probably wouldn't have seen yourself, right? And then if it's coming from someone who's trading a particular instrument that that they know, and it's coming from them, you're like, okay, I can probably trust this, rather than just hey, I've seen this and this looks good. What do you reckon? It's for sure, definitely a beneficial thing. Going back to your charts, in terms of the way you enter trades, are you mostly using higher time frames for entries? And then if you're looking for momentum, are you kind of then entering at market on candle closes or at breakouts, for example?
I like to zoom into the lower time frame. Is my screen still on? Yeah, right?
Got it back on. Yeah.
Or not? Okay, perfect. Because Fartcoin here was a good example of the one that I just showed you guys, where it was kind of like in this range compressing. And one thing that's really valuable to me is to have multiple time frames with the EMAs, because EMAs are kind of my intuition, because I've seen so many times how price behaves around it. So having them see in a certain way across different time frames really makes things click for me. So here we could see in this little consolidation range that we were trying to reclaim the 4-hour EMAs. And then if we zoomed in to the 1 hour, we could see that we had like a perfect little retest here for the first time after this reclaim here. Then I zoomed in even more, and this is where I entered the trade. So it's kind of like, it becomes like kind of microscopic. I will say that my trading ideas are almost always on the daily. So the idea itself stems from a higher time frame, but then the entry and kind of like the confirmation of that momentum, that is usually on a much lower time frame. I will say that I don't share this a lot, because I also feel in our position with followers and on Twitter and stuff, I sometimes feel like it's make more sense to people to kind of share the higher time frame, also to protect them a little bit, because things can change really fast, and I also don't want people to really hyper focus on the lower time frame. But I myself use it a lot for Confluence, because a good example here, and I will just delete this for clarity. With this breakout here, which is actually, this was one of the lower time frame charts that I did share at the moment that I bought it. But here you could see we had like that those February lows all the way from back. Well, it's far away from back there. We had these range lows here, and we had those 1 hour EMAs. So I knew that if we would have like trouble again now after already retesting this for like 3 times, that's like not what momentum looks like, right? So if we would have done kind of like that breakout and then deviate back below, at that point, like any significant action below the February lows, like that's like not what I'm looking for. So in that sense, I will be babysitting a trade when I enter it, because I do believe as a momentum trader, you need to see like that follow through. And of course, there can be like a little bit of dancing around. It's not that static, but I think you understand what I mean. You will know if you're right on the strength at least pretty quick. And then of course later there can be fuckery. Like let's say it bumps the here, but we have FOMC and it just, the whole market takes a shit. Like sure, I might get stopped out, but at that point at least I know that my strength idea was correct or not, of course.
Do you use trailing stops or anything? So if it pumped up and then you see it go sideways and you're just, the spidey senses are tingling and just saying, oh, maybe things are drying up here, I should protect myself, or do you just, let it go? Like, how do you manage your trades?
No, I do. I do use them. I'm checking to see here because I can't really remember because it went pretty fast what I did here. But usually I really like to use like the short-term trends for this. So in that sense, it's, let's say, because here it just kind of went into a straight line. So it's maybe not the best example for trading stuff. But sometimes we will see that it will do, let's say, something like this, where it would have gone longer sideways, kind of touching this. At that point, if we have like that consolidation that forms, which here was super, super short, then I kind of don't want to see it back below there. Because once again, we're talking about momentum, right? And this far, or well, this close to the original breakout is not where I want to see stalling. A good example of that was Jito. And I have to really zoom in or out to see where exactly that trade was, but that is something that I did cut in the moments because it wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. Yeah, it was here. This, we could see that we had like a pump. I traded this breakout here, I believe, if we would zoom in a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. This is something I traded. But then we could see the stalling was so close to the original strength that whenever it started to kind of like, stall here on a lower time frame, that's when I caught it manually in this case, because it just shouldn't be like that. And I think this all comes really back to what I said to you at the start of the stream, right? With the intuition. You have seen probably the price action behavior around breakouts, around retests so many times that you kind of know when something is being slammed down or being bought up, or when it's just, taking a breather to continue moving, or if it wants to reverse. At least I feel at this point there's a little bit of spidey senses around that for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult skill as a momentum trader, really, isn't it? Because you're trading the momentum, you get in because you're seeing something very strong and you're therefore expecting continuation. But then you get that feeling of just something feels like it's not going to keep going up, or it might just die here. And then you've got a really tricky decision to make, right? And it's, do I cut this and risk being wrong and then this moves up another 100 points, or do I listen to my gut feeling and like accept whatever outcome, or like the other option, which is the shit option, is like cut it and then just jump back in the next green candle, which is like all part of the training for this, right? So do you
Absolutely.
have you ever struggled with anything like that, or have you got anything you put in place for it?
I have very much struggled with that. I think one of my biggest flaws early on in this career was to keep looking at the same chart for too long. So let's say in this case with Jito closing it here, or here, wherever it was, and then immediately reopening it on like a candle, the 5-minute candle where it tries to reclaim, and then kind of like watching it like a hawk to see like, what if I was right after all? What if I missed out on this? So I actually usually nuke whatever coin I just closed for my watch list immediately, just because I know that's one of the things I'm sensitive for. So in that sense, it's self-protection. I think it's good to know yourself and know what type of flaws you have. And I will try anything to improve. I literally went to hypnotherapy when I was a pretty new trader for backholding. I think it was year 1.5. of my trading career, and it was getting like a little bit more serious. And I noticed that I made the same mistake all the time, again and again. And I had very positive experiences with hypnotherapy. So I went for just personal reasons, So I went to this woman and I was like, listen, I have a mistake I make in my work life all the time and I need you to fix it. And she did. She put me in hypnosis and she kind of like talked to my problem and she recorded it. And then I had to listen to it 30 days before I slept. And I will say that's definitely improved since then. So I would recommend.
Did that make a marked difference, like pretty soon after you did those 30 days, would you think? Or was it like
It did.
well, how did it go?
It did, but I'm not sure if it was actually the hypnotherapy or the fact that I was like, I actually went so far out of my way to like fix this mistake. If I'm still repeating it now, I'm kind of like an idiot. And also I paid like vast amount of money for that session. So I think in the back of my head, it was kind of just, I was forcing myself to quit making the mistake. I think it's the same thing with people that want to quit smoking and they tell all of their friends so that the next time they're in front of a bar, and they ask for a cigarette, they look stupid. I think I was kind of like trying to do that. And I think a lot of people don't take trading serious enough. It is a business, it is a job. You have to manage yourself. No one else besides the market is going to manage you. So, you need to really look within sometimes,
And when you first started trading, we'll get into a little bit, but you trade in the higher timeframes now. Did you ever start on the lower timeframes and then realize maybe this was just too hectic and, built that up? Or has it always been on these sort of timeframes that you've traded?
I will say, I think I gave it a go for a little bit, but it wasn't really my thing. I felt like my performance wasn't as good. Also, I will say the people that have taught me trading, which is my dad, but also a few friends that I made very early in my journey that I'm super grateful for. They always really preached the higher time frame, and both of them, shout out Crypto Amsterdam and Bill GK. They were both very, very zen in their trading. They would never chase. They're not stressy. They're not like watching every move. They're people with a life next to their business, and they will nail big moves, but just in like a calm way. So I guess that was instilled in me from the start of my trading career as well. I also just like life a lot, so I'm not interested in managing markets constantly. Although I will say that, of course, there's a lot of scalpers that clock in and clock out. So in that sense, it could be really nice. If my performance would have been as good in that niche, I would have probably made good use of it. But unfortunately, it was not. How is that for you? Because I know that you trade lower time frames, right?
Yeah, I did swing trading for probably the first 6 or 7 years of my trading career, and I was always like higher time frame because I had work, and then when I left work, I had the trading group, and then when that kind of was my first 5-6 years, and then I moved. Like I came off social media in 2020, and then kind of delved into lower time frame trading from about early 2022 because I was just trading by myself. Like I didn't have a job, and I found higher time frame trading wasn't that great when you don't have much occupying your life. So I moved down to the lower time frames, and like I had a bunch of problems that I thought I had ironed out suddenly come to the surface like way stronger because I'm on the lower time frames, and I had to go through all of those problems again. And interestingly enough, if I have a few months off, like I had 3 months off, 4 months off beginning of last year, and then when I came back again, all those problems which I thought I'd ironed out, I had to go through them all again. But it's like it shines a light on all of the issues that you've got, and it kind of like 10x's them when you're on the lower
Of
time
course, it's
frames.
the speed, but it's. I guess the knife cuts both ways, is what we say in Dutch. It's like on one hand, your feedback loop is super short, so you can really improve if you put in the work. But then also everything surfaces 10 times quicker. So I can imagine that's like such a roller coaster in a way.
Yeah, I started looking into like myself a lot more thanks to that lower time frame, and same way as where you just said about hypnotherapy, where you've gone to such an extreme length to fix an issue. You're a bit of a twat if you then keep making the same issue. And I
Yeah,
kind of put
sure.
things up in my. I'm not quoting you verbatim then, but I can remember what you said. But um, yeah, like I had to start putting in place things to stop myself from committing the same errors constantly. And part of that was like journaling, and part of that was like being very accountable with a friend. And when the time came where I did the same issue again, it was kind of like you come to like almost like a spiritual crossroads where you're like, I can go down this path by acting the same way as I did before, and I know the outcome. And then I've got to talk to my mate who's going to call me a twat, and then I'm going to have the red pill now, and then I'm going to have to like all this like mental self abuse I have by going, oh, I'm such a twat for doing this. Or I can
Yeah,
change it and go this
fix
way,
it.
and it
Yeah.
feels uncomfortable to do that because I lose control and blah blah blah. But um, like it I think especially being a momentum trader, chasing breakouts and just literally following trends, um it feels like you're always in some sort of heightened state of emotion because everything's moving very quickly. It kind of feels
Yep.
like a rushed decision where you're like, I need to make this decision quickly, or I could go miss out on like a 20 point. I could miss out on an entry by another 20 points because this thing might just rip. But is this right? And blah, blah, blah. But so it's for sure like a really good thing for self improvement as a trader and like as a person. But it's like a really uncomfortable thing. And I think, I really just do think anyone who gets to a good point of their trading has to go through that fire, and whatever that fire is relative to your own demons that you have. But like hypnotherapy, I want to talk about that later again on one of the later sections, because one of my close mates, his wife is a hypnotherapist or has studied in hypnotherapy, and
Oh,
I'd always
perfect.
kind of declined it, and I kind of with her, and I wish I'd kind of done that now, and maybe I'll do it in the future. But that does sound interesting. But
You
yeah, for
should. I
sure.
mean, they get into your brain, right? It's like either you do it yourself through manual thinking, or you kind of like open the gates and do it in a speed course. That's how I see it. It's obviously really scary, and I do agree with you. Like, I think the flaws we make in trading are kind of a reflection of who we are as people. Also, I have some friends. One of my friends was actually in 2021. He was that 45 mil UPNL trader on Binance, and then blew up. It is. I love him as a person, but it's just also if you look at who he is in life, he is like a dopamine junkie and kind of like a thrill seeker, which also has been standing in his way in the past. So it's kind of like it makes a lot of sense. I think with every person that I know well that trades, I can tell like their biggest mistake is probably has a little bit of a correlation with a certain personality trait that they would wish to change as well. So that is very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's everything in trading is just a catalyst for your own improvement. It's gonna, like, I know, for example, what my exact trading entry should be, like when all the stars align, when the volume is correct, when like the technical pattern is correct, when the trend is moving, and like everything feels like spot on. I know exactly what that feels like, and I will still find myself taking a trade in not those conditions and
Ugh, I
taking
know, but
revenge
that's
trades.
also human, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I
You
feel
have to
you.
cut yourself some
Didn't you
slack.
also have whenever you didn't you also have that when you were making that course for Kraken, that you were like, these are the rules, and it's like we know it so well, we teach them, and still like we're human, so of course sometimes we're gonna deviate from it, and I think that's only normal. But it's just really fun and funny as an educator to sometimes write it all down and have it really in that overview. And it's like, of course, you take those steps in your mind whenever you look at a chart and kind of like prepare to trade, because I will say I'm someone that very much prepares. You will see also on all my charts that there's like so many alerts that I have here, that I have on Kraken. I'm just like, any scenario, kind of whatever happens, whether it's, as you can see here, a breakout or a breakdown, I will move these constantly in confluence with the EMAs and with levels that move, just so that I can kind of be notified. So in that sense, I really love, following the rules and kind of preparing for a trade. But still, like you said, we're all human and we will revenge trade and sometimes do something that's suboptimal. There's many ways also to be FOMO'd into stuff, right? Talking about those Discord groups with people that are posting their this and their that. And it's just, it is like tough out there. There's a lot of temptation, left, right, center, your own demons, your friends, the bills. I don't know. I think everyone has a lot of factors that come into play with taking those suboptimal entries.
Yeah, I make it a point that before I log on to X, I have to look at the charts, because if I log on to X, they're guaranteed within like the first 3 or 4 posts that will come up as soon as I open the app or log on the computer is someone going apeshit over like a green candle, and I'll be like, oh fuck, something's moving, and then I'll check the chart and I'll be like, see it on like M5, and then I'll go to H1 and no structure has changed, and in fact it still looks super
Nothing.
bearish or something. So yeah, it's like it is an absolute minefield for someone who like isn't who isn't like that far into their trading career, you know.
Yeah, which is why I recommend everyone to have these little things, they're following their no noise. And then I have baking Twitter, but that's maybe not for everyone. But I have a no noise. You're actually in it. I won't disclose because maybe some people who are my friends that are not in there will fight me over it. But I very much believe that it's really important to have like a no noise timeline where it's just people that have a very, very unbiased, neutral view. No one that's in that list is a hype person, like not a single one. There's like 38 of them and they're all, I don't want to say they're boring people because yourself is very much not a boring person, but they're super nuanced, they're not going to go for the cloud. They don't go viral. It's like very humble in a way, which I love, and it should be like that.
Yeah, but we've got to get that Elon bucks, right? With the engagement. So.
Oh God. Yeah, I guess.
One thing I wanted to ask is, like, before we move on to the next chapter, just in regards to your watch list. So you'd said obviously you follow momentum and you submit to a narrative. I've very much kind of convinced myself over the years, and it's something I'm kind of needing to get out of really as I explore different ways of trading. But I'd kind of convinced myself that the fewer charts that you're looking at, the more relationship you're able to build with that instrument, and the more you're able to understand the behaviors of that chart. And then therefore, when you get a spike in volume and then the momentum picks up, you can trust that, versus like back testing or trading my exact strategy on gold, for example. I just like it. I just crumble, and my results really go to the toilet. But I feel uncomfortable. Maybe it's something I've just built for myself because I've focused on so few charts and get to know them very well. But something I feel uncomfortable with is, you may say to me, for example, hey, check out pump or whatever. It's put in like an inverse head and shoulders. It's now rallying out of resistance with strength and it looks bottomed. What do you think? I would struggle to be like, yeah, I'm going to take a trade on that because I don't know how it's going to behave afterwards. Do you very much
Gotcha.
keep yourself to certain charts, or are you literally kind of like, wherever the momentum is, I'm going to go like trade it?
Okay, so that's a really good question. I do trade almost everything, although I will say that there are certain things that I exclude because either it's a coin that has been really scammy in the past, like Lido is a good example, or it's something that has very low volume or a very weird. I look at like Coinalyze often. I don't know much about like the whole open interest and all that stuff. I'm not an expert, but I will know when something looks out of the ordinary and when it doesn't make sense. So I think that's kind of like how I would exclude something. But in the sense of believing a chart, what you're saying, I definitely understand what you mean in a sense that, like, yes, if you know a chart well, you know how it moves. On the other hand, I also do believe that with altcoins, whenever there's a narrative and momentum, almost all altcoins move the same. You know, however the momentum sustains is a different story, of course. That also really depends on the timing of the market. But I think, to me personally, I think any coin that has decent volume and a little bit of a history that doesn't look too scammy, I'm okay to trade. For instance, this is something that I wouldn't be trading so quick because this is like kind of a new coin. It probably has like some questionable floats and all that shit, where there's like a lot of well, not a lot, but there are some red flags that just don't really make sense. So this is something that I wouldn't touch so quick. But if we're looking at just the usual suspects like Pengu, Jido, Ondo, like all those type of altcoins that are familiar, I will trade. Also new ones, the new and shiny coins is also something that I will definitely trade if it makes sense. I don't think right now in this market it is the most suiting thing. But in the previous bull, that was something that I definitely loved to trade a lot. I have a few threads on it in my highlights on X. It's called, I don't know, I just got here, which is scenarios for newly listed coins, if anyone's interested. But basically, I totally see where you're coming from here. This is a good example on Lido being scammy. But to me, I just like to go through my watch list and mark out a shit ton of alerts. And then I kind of add things. You can see here, I will add it to the watch list strength, for instance. And this is actually usually what I am looking at, my strength watch list, because these coins, in my opinion, have shown me that they want to do business right now. Then if I'm trading anything actively, I will put it in my watching right now. I just put these few for our stream. I don't have open positions, but usually this is just BTC, ES, ETH, Solana, others, and ETH BTC. So how I kind of do it is that at the start of the week, or whenever I feel like I want to lay on the couch with my laptop for a bit and just mark these things out, because it's a very passive thing, I will kind of move certain coins in or out categories. And a reason for that, for instance, would be with Pump, when it would have reclaimed this or whatever. I would move it to, it's already there, to the strength buckets. And then the next few days, this is kind of like all I will look at, unless some alert pings, which is why I have so many of these alerts on coins that are interesting to me. You will see here with Ondo as well. So that I don't really have to look at this list all the time. This is something that I do like very passively. Like I said, I'm just like, I will go through it one by one and just put those alerts. And if something pings, we look at it, otherwise not. So the only time I will spend is in these two categories. And I understand what you're saying about not trusting them as much, especially in this type of market. But on the other hand, like when things want to go, you can see it here with Ondo, like they usually just go on the altcoin side. If there's real momentum in the markets, I think you can trust it. I just haven't seen it for a few weeks, apart from Pump. But when it's there, I will trust those moves. Yeah.
Okay, fair. Yeah, I've always kind of struggled to trust being in an altcoin, or like the patterns I trade are normally form when there's high volume in the chart, and they will appear like their most basic patterns, right? That you can see on baby pips, or like the most beginner courses that we've seen like 20 plus years. I'll just look for them and I will see them. If it's in a chart that I know, like Bitcoin, for example, I'll know to trust that it will probably follow through on the strength. Whereas if it's on an altcoin, I'm like, but is some dude with like 1 million followers just talking about this coin at the moment? Like, is it just going to come right back down? So I admire people that can like pull money out of them consistently, but I personally struggle.
But that's why you want to pair it with the narrative sides and the fundamental sides. You see how it kind of all comes together, because then at that point it's like, first, before anything, it's timing, right? Like right now, I don't really, like I said, I haven't taken a trade in a bit. I bought like a little bit of hype, but it was like such like microscopic position stupid because I planned it out, didn't follow my own plan. It is what it is. But if the timing is right in the market, that's kind of like when I want to believe the things that I'm seeing. But besides the timing, I really understand your point. But when the timing is there, the fundamentals and the narrative is there, and we have that EMA action that I love to trade, to me, that's kind of like when I get the green light. And that's when I take all these trades in a row, like near Solana, Fartcoin, those were like all in a row, just like back to back, because the green light was on. Right now, I mean, we have some moves, but for my system, I'm not really seeing it currently. So that's when I stay out. So I would say it really starts with timing, then watch lists, then alerts, then levels. Yeah.
I agree with that. Right. That's an interesting point to end on, to move into the next section, which I've called trader lifestyle and background. So basically, touched on it a little bit about where you learned from with your dad, but just kind of want to go back right to the beginning, how you got into trading, what made you stick around, and kind of what your day-to-day life looks like now with trading compared to how it did back when you first started.
Let me think where to start. So my dad was a trader. He did mostly stocks and forex, commodities a little bit. And I remember as a young girl always like seeing him in his room with all the stuff, and he's like a risk taker, like he's like full degen, you know, like he made a lot, lost a lot, but it was just very always fun to see, I guess. And we are very much the same in that sense. I'm also a degen and a risk taker, so we really bonded over that. And yeah, he kind of took me a little bit under his wing with the FX stuff. He had also a few friends that they were regularly trading with, but I found it pretty boring. I loved the charts and the idea of it, but I hated the people around FX. Like I just could not like connect with them in any way. So I was struggling there, trying to make money, losing it all. Then my dad did a 10x on XRP in the 2017 bull run, and he made like a lot of money. And I was like, wait, my own father is like out trading me on something called crypto. I was like, wait, what is this? And I used to work in the music industry, so very different worlds. So I was not involved with any people that were kind of into that stuff, because 2017, it was like going a little mainstream, of course, but in my circle, it really wasn't. So of course, that was like a really big thing that he did a 10x on something. Like as someone who was educated in Forex, I could not imagine seeing a 10x. That was just like very foreign. So my interest was piqued, and I started in the bottom of the bear market, 2018. And I pretty quickly got onto Twitter and made a few friends that are still my friends. And I downloaded, do you know Nick Patel? He had this altcoin trader handbook, and I downloaded it and I printed it. Yeah, and I was reading it like every day like crazy, and it just all clicked for me. Not just the content, but kind of like the space, you know, the industry, just the risk takers, the people that are kind of like in a niche. The music industry that I worked in, the music we did was also very much a niche, and that's I love that stuff. I love people that dive really deep into something and give their all. So I kind of started trading a little bit. I wasn't successful in FX, and I was pretty successful quickly in crypto, of course, with a lot of learning curve, right? Like making money, losing it, making it, losing it again. It definitely wasn't like a linear growth right from the start. But I just found a community very quick, and I loved that. And I started there as a student, and then I became an educator there. It's called Altcoin Traders. It's still a little bit active. It's a group from my friends, Crypto Amsterdam. And we would do streams in there and just vibe together. I really loved it. And at some point it started to get pretty serious, whereas my other company I kind of grew out of it a little bit, and I doubted if I wanted to continue. And I guess they kind of crossed, you know? So it was a golden cross in that sense, where one phased out and the other phased in. Um, yeah, I think that's how it went. And over the years, of course, you also know in crypto, it's trading, but it's also sometimes advising. There was the pre-sale time. There is work with companies like Kraken. So it's in that sense more versatile than just only being involved in markets, which is something that I really love. I come from a background of branding and just like telling a story. And I think bringing the message across, whether that's, the conversation we're having now about psychology, mental health, so forth, or just really the very dry content of how to take a trade, where to place your stop loss. Like, I love that stuff. I love learning people new things. I love learning new things myself from other people. And I think this space can really use some more of that. There's a lot of grifters in it. And in the end, I noticed for myself that I trade much better when I have nice people around me. I'm sure the same goes for you. It really is a team effort sometimes, but especially if you're a narrative trader, it very much is. So yeah, I'm very happy where I am now. Like I said, I will trade in sprints. So it will be back to back to back and then not at all. Right now, I'm in a not at all phase for the past 1.5 weeks, besides a little hype trade, which was not really mentionable size-wise. But yeah, I'm excited to be more on again. The last bull, there were weeks, months that I was like really, really locked in, like really doing like 12 to 14-hour days, like managing bigger size and stuff. And right now, it just doesn't feel like the right moment for that. Also because I'm sure also when you're sizing up and just kind of like trying to expand in that way, it can be taxing, for just your mental health. Sounds a bit dramatic, but it's just you are in a position and you have to manage it. It is a job. Like, no one's gonna do it for you. You can't clock out. You can't put responsibility to your coworker. Like, this is it. It's like you and your money, and whatever you do has a reflection on whether you make money or not. And yeah, we are responsible for that. So therefore we have to act like it.
Yeah, I even on my stream on Monday that I do, I had a section about burnout in trading, and it was exactly what you just said. Then you know when you shouldn't really be trading because you have all these bad habits will come and nothing really feels right. But after you've had a period of being on for so long, you need that time away because, like, I find myself, I've been in positions still running from like November, and even though they're massively in profit, I'll still wake up in the morning. The first thing I do is like I'll check the chart, see like what's
Yeah,
happened, and it's really fucking
it's in your
draining.
head. It
Yeah,
is. Yeah,
yeah,
I totally understand. Those times off are so important. Also, definitely one of the things that I had to learn along the way, I can get very hyper focused on anything that I do or love. So in that sense, it's easy for me to get very caught up in it, But over the last few years, I've also tried to just really work on logging off. I'm very lucky that I have some nice opportunities in my life, whether that's investing outside of financial markets. I love to cook. I have a very nice group of people around me. So in that sense, I've built a system where it's easy and actually nice to log off. But it took some time because I think we all know that feeling in a bull market when there's like nothing that you want to do more than look at a chart like the entire day, because it's just such a rush. And that's like, okay, those times can be there, but it's like that can't be all the time. Because if that's all the time, like, when are you gonna recharge? I would be like dreaming about charts, having like alerts go off in the night, or like not sleep. And I have friends all over the world in that sense. We were on calls. There's always someone awake. It's like, because it never ends.
yeah. I know that 100%. Actually, I think this will move nicely into chapter 3, actually called detachment from trading, because one of the things that I wanted to really kind of talk to you about. And going back to when you asked me about my lower time frame trading, one of the systems I had to kind of build for myself was like a routine, and I called it a daily code, where I realized if I did these things each day alongside my trading, I would have the right headspace to go into the charts the next day. So, like when we talked about, if you see it on the charts, you've entered a position, and if it's going to go, it's going to go, and then it doesn't, and you've got to cut that. Like if I skipped certain things in my routine, I wouldn't be in that right headspace where I kind of like wouldn't cut early. I'd maybe hold on to it and get a stop out and stuff. And my code that I'd kind of called it, it consisted of like going out for a walk each day. I had to journal like my mind each day. I had to do some form of exercise each day. I had to meditate each day. I had to read something each day as well. And all of those kind of contributed to a state of mind which was more congruent with consistently profitable trading. And I've noticed as life gets a little bit more hectic, I'm not able to do those things. But and part of me asking this as well is a little bit of motivation to get me out of this kind of rut that I'm in from constantly sitting in front of the charts. But finding that balance in life with trading, what kind of things do you do? Because I've seen you've mentioned meditation. You obviously just talked about hypnotherapy as well, which I'm still curious about. Like what kind of things do you do in your daily life to make sure that, I know obviously you're going to have periods where you do kind of get sucked into the vortex of constantly looking at charts, but kind of when you catch yourself, what do you kind of tend to default to get away from that kind of addict feeling?
Honestly, I think anything that's the opposites in energy, I think like trading has a very masculine energy. It's very fast, it's very digital. It's very much about numbers, about money, about growth, all of those things. And I think anything that is opposite from that, whatever it is that suits the person that's maybe listening to this. In my case, it's stuff like, being outside, yoga, cooking, going on a holiday. And of course, I know, I'm very lucky to be able to move so freely in life in that sense. But I think just detaching, I think anyone will know what those low dopamine activities are for them. It's kind of like that one thing that you can do without looking at the clock, where you're kind of like wishing there was another hour of it, where you're like not thinking of anything. Whether it's, I don't know, some people go fishing, other people love pottery, anything like that, In my case, yeah, I really love to hike as well. Like I said, cooking, these type of things. I do work out almost every day. Meditating, I am not a star at it these days. I feel like I'm much more peaceful than I was before, which also has to do a lot with lifestyle. Like I said, I came from the music industry, which was the electronic music industry. So I'm sure you can imagine what we were doing in the weekends. So
You Dutch people,
a
you
very
love
different.
electronic music.
Yes, I do. Yeah. So in that era, it was much harder for me to not get sucked into trading, because I feel like whenever you just are in that state of dopamine, and then you also in your free time still go look for the dopamine, that's when you're just like, that becomes like your default, kind of like your baseline. And at that point, you have your alerts on in the night. You wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is look at a chart. I try to not do it. When I wake up, I make a tea, I put my shoes on, and I go for a walk without looking at anything. Then I go sit in front of my red light therapy. I know it's all very cliche, but to me, now that I don't have other things that I need to do in the morning, it is a very nice routine. So kind of that's like a 20 minutes situation where you don't look at the charts yet. And that's really hard for me sometimes. I'm not going to lie. This sounds like it's like a breeze, a walk in the park, but it's not, because I also still, after all these years, have a lot of FOMO. I can really feel like everyone's catching things, but I'm not. For instance, like now, I don't know if my chart's still in sight, but we just checked that pump chart. Like I said, this is something that is completely my system, and I missed it. I was not involved, didn't even consider it at the moment, even though people were tagging me in one of my Discord groups. So I still feel, when I see it be up that much in a perfect scenario for my system, I still feel that FOMO, but I try to think like, okay, If I wake up now and I immediately go look at everything that I've missed, I'm for sure going to start my day in a more shitty way than whenever I take 20 minutes to just kind of like, get it together in a nice and peaceful way. And if I think that I need to look, let's say at 7:40, then I just wake up at 7:20, right? Like those 20 minutes are not going to make like a difference in my life. And I think you really set the tone for the rest of your day, the way you started. And like I said, it's all very cliche, but I do think it is cliche for a reason. For me, it really works, and I'm sure you experience the same, since you just mentioned, going on those walks and kind of taking care of your health.
Actually, the morning, is like the most important time, isn't it? Like you said, it sets up the rest of your day. And I used to be very good at, particularly when I was off social media, I was very good at not being on my phone for more than an hour a day. And now I'm kind of glued to it, which is, it's like I've become the complete opposite of what I'd made myself, and then kind of fallen back into the thing I escaped from, all thanks to social media. But I'm gonna, after like you just saying that, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I need to maybe just take 20 minutes every single morning, even if it is waking up a little bit earlier. Like it genuinely doesn't make much of a difference. So it does genuinely make much of a difference to my life if I pull out my phone and I look at the charts as soon as I wake up, and I look at the X, and I open my WhatsApp and all of that. It does start me off. Like I'll be rushing to the computer. I'll go downstairs and I'll be like rushing away from the family and trying to get into my office because I want to get onto the charts. But it never, like, if I look back, I've never ever needed to like get to the charts that soon, Like it's never made that much of a
100%.
difference in my day.
No, exactly. It hasn't made that much of a difference whether you do it or not in your profitability, but it has made a difference in, the way you carry yourself for the rest of the day. And I think also, once again, coming back to those alerts, that's why I have so many, because if, I turn my phone on after those 20 minutes and there's like 10 alerts gone off, of course, I'm immediately gonna look. If it hasn't, like I personally really love to also read that no noise timeline that I just showed you, because I feel like there's traders in there that I've carefully curated over the last 5-6 years that whose opinion I like really trust. Not saying that I blindly following anything they're saying, but to me it can give a really nice color to the day and to whatever has happened. There's also a lot of people from different time zones in there, which obviously gives a little bit of an idea of kind of what happened since you were asleep. So I feel it's a nice way of catching up without having to scroll X, right? Because like you said, that can be super overwhelming. There's a lot of people flexing, negative takes, hypey takes. Is not something that I'm looking for, but having like a curated list of people to kind of like catch up on whatever happened while you were asleep, checking those alerts, and then the charts, that to me is a kind of a peaceful routine. And of course, there are still days that I'm rushing, but more often than not, it is pretty peaceful. But also, we're in a super boring market, so who knows? I will completely lose all my good habits in a few months from now. Hopefully not, but we'll see how it goes.
And have you always kind of been that way as a trader? Like you've always kind of been able to strike a balance, or did something happen where you realized like, actually, I need to maybe not be so much in the charts and I need to kind of figure out a balance? Like, did you ever go out of balance at some point?
Yeah, I definitely went out of balance. Like I said, I entered in a bear market. So I never experienced the drawdown. So my first time making money was also my first time, losing a lot of it, as I'm sure happens with everyone. But I think a lot of people enter in the bull craze and then they immediately have the drawdown. For me, it was kind of like a little bit the other way around, which was strange in a way. And also I felt like I really knew what I was doing. And then it turned out that, I never experienced a bear market and there was still like a lot to learn. So that was a very big learning curve for me. That also coincided, well, I will say that towards the tail end of that learning curve coincided with me switching careers to full-time crypto. And that made a big difference because I was changing my habits, you know. So in the end, I think it came all together with the learning curve, losing a lot, trying to learn from it, having, luckily, like I said, a lot of smart people around me that went through that already. And then fixing my habits, having more time to reflect, and journaling, like you said, is something that I'm currently not doing a lot, but there was a period that I did it a lot. And I personally noticed that I perform much better when I do less, like much better. That's also the reason why I haven't traded in a few weeks, or like I said, not anything significantly besides the baby hype. Because to me, like I said in the start of the stream, when my streak ends, it often ends for a while. It has very rarely happened that I have a streak and then I lose 1 or 2 trades and then I immediately have another streak. It's usually not the case. I also haven't been sidelined for that, is more so what I'm trying to say. Usually there is a streak and then there is, you know, a good period of things cooling off a little bit. And that is something that I really saw in my results. That it's like the less I do, whenever I start losing, that's kind of like, that was a very big jump for me in my improvements. That was kind of a plateau that I left because, you know, I think Dentoshi always tweets about this. He says like you have small wins, small losses, big losses. If you can eliminate just the big losses, it's like a crazy improvement for your P&L, which is obviously super true.
Yeah, I think that's I kind of realized that like after a very long period of time in trading. I think it's kind of like one of those things where when you first get into the journey, you focus on like making the money and realizing how to get into trades and how to read the market and stuff. And then once you make the money, you realize that you have to learn how to hold the money and, yeah, like you said, take the smaller losses and keep the bigger wins, but eliminate all the like the stupid mistakes, right? So
Yeah.
do you remember like a period or anything where you just said you have like a really good winning period and then you'll just flatline for a while? Was it just experience that taught you like, okay, that's what happens and I need to chill out for a little bit? Or, you know, was there a particular event that kind of made you go, right, I don't want to do this again, so I have to maybe protect myself somehow?
I think it was just more so zooming out and looking at the results and the streaks and kind of really seeing like it was very clear. You know, it wasn't like 2 wins, 1 loss, 1 win, 3 losses. It was like 4 or 5 wins and then like 4 or 5 losses in the period that I was, you know, keeping going after the losing streak kicked in. And when I realized that it was kind of like 4 green, 4 red, 4 green, 4 red, it was like, okay, maybe I should just kind of like quit when I start to lose. And of course, you know, everyone can have like a losing trade in between. I'm not saying that it's always that black and white, but I will say in my case, when you're really a momentum trader and kind of like waiting for that, excuse my words, balls tingling type of feeling, then I think to me it made a lot of sense to kind of zoom into that and really reflect on that, also with journaling. And when I spotted that, that was like what made the big difference for me. So it wasn't like one big happening. I think it was more, you know, over the course of like 7-8 months, looking at those results, because I think that's roughly how long I was like actively journaling a lot, like 9-10 months, and then seeing like such clear results of that repeated mistake of just going too long. You know, kind of like what you said about the party at the start, you know, that one guy that keeps wanting to go to another after party when, you know, it's clear that everyone's going home. I guess that was kind of like me on the charts back then.
Yeah, sounds similar actually. Yeah, you're like trying to like every little move that goes back up in the same direction which you were already like making money in. If it starts going back up after you've closed a trade, you're like, wow, I got to get back in, and then it does what you've shown on this chart, just kind of dribbles down and into
Yeah.
oblivion. Yeah, I know I know what you mean. So would you
What
say
do what
like,
do you do
sorry?
to like? I said, what do you do to avoid making that same mistake?
Um, to be honest, it's like with if I take forex as my bread and butter, like if I'm day trading the 1 minute time frame, for example, and I'll realize that you let's say that what you've got on the screen now is now the 1 minute chart, and I'll wake up and I'll check the charts halfway through it, and I can just kind of see that that day is going to be that day, and I just won't trade. I just won't look at the charts and kind of copy a similar. No, I don't copy you, but I've got a similar system to you where I'll set alerts where I'll mark a key level above and below wherever price is on whatever time frame that is, and I just won't wait. I'll just wait until it hits that level, and then I won't trade until it hits that point. And I might get a period of time where it be like just chopping around between those two alerts below and above, and I'll just check the charts and go, what the fuck's going on? Is my alerts working? And then like no, it's just not doing anything. So I think alert systems is a really good way. But truth be told, like over the past 2 years, my son turns two next week, and when he was born, all of my systems, all of my processes, all of my emotions, and all of my habits and routines just went out of the window. And my style of like my first probably like 18 months of his life, I was trying to cling on to like a mindset and a routine which I'd got myself into before, and kind of being optimal, like what we said, like
Mm.
having that routine of journaling, um, doing something mindful like meditating or going for a walk, or just kind of being able to have that time to address whatever's going on in your head. And that meant I was able to look at the charts and just go, no, no dice, and then just not just like going away and doing something else. As I'm kind of changing things now over the past probably sort of 6 months, where I'm moving more to swing trading, I'm making a lot more content as well, and I'm trying to find a balance between like providing content on the charts versus I'm just sitting out and not doing anything, because nobody really wants to hear from a trader that's not doing anything, right? So like when I'm at my best, the answer is quite easily like I'll look at the charts and just be like, fuck it, I'm not doing this. And then if it does it the next day, I might just go, I'm done for the rest of this week. I'm not even going to bother looking at it. But
It's so nice, right, to be
oh,
sidelined
beautiful.
when things are chopping. Oh, the best feeling.
Yeah, so good. I mean, what I'd even said on my stream on Monday as well. Again, just going back to when I was talking about burnout, I feel kind of convinced that we're going to get another leg down in crypto, and I know that it's going to come between now and probably maybe like end of September, right? If we're going through like previous cycles, but even just the price action says to me we're probably going to have one leg lower. And I'm trading, waiting for that leg lower, because I know after that leg lower, I'm going to go away for like a month or 2 months from my trading and just not place any trades in crypto. I'm just going to be in accumulation. And if I didn't feel like we were going to have that drop, I probably would have gone on holiday like for the past month. But yeah, I'm kind of in a weird spot at the moment where I'm creating content. I'm trying to keep momentum with socials, but also like fighting
Mm.
my kind of instinct, which is don't actually trade right now. So it's a little bit up in the air. But the answer when I'm at my best is doing all the things we've just talked about, like being mindful, and just kind of
Yeah,
like you find a lot of time for yourself to do things. Like I like going down to the sauna and doing a cold plunge, and I've done that. I try to do that like 2 times a week at least. I've probably done it once in the past 6 weeks, and that's because I just can't pull myself away from whatever I'm doing. So I'm actually quite bad for it at the moment. But my experience like is able to, if I'm taking trades, keep the risk really low and like keep the losses really low. Just to go back to what we were talking about before, like when I can see to size up, I'll make back, like I could go take 10 losses, I can go make them all back in like one big trade. Like that's how I'm able to manage
absolutely.
my risk. So even though I've got bad habits like trading when I probably shouldn't at the moment, I know like the downside is like completely managed, you know.
I feel you. Yeah, and of course, better times will come around. I know, for myself, and I'm sure you as well, that we have proven ourselves successful in these markets over the years. So it's like, that when your edge is coming to fruition in a good market, that's also gonna erase like, I don't know how many months of kind of chopping, even if you were involved, right? Whether it's like a flatline P&L that was not as nice as you were hoping for, or whether it's like a little bit of loss because you were trying when you shouldn't have. I know for myself that when momentum is in the market, there's like a lot of stuff I can do. So right now it's just kind of waiting for that and trying to not be stupid in the meantime, I guess.
Yeah, I'm also like prone to being like beating myself up a lot if I do things that I know I shouldn't have done and I keep doing them and I don't pull myself away from them. Like I'm in a little bit of drawdown on a challenge account for a prop firm at the moment, for example, and that's because I just took like silly trades that I knew I shouldn't have. And I'm in the past, I've beat myself up quite a lot, and then as you said, you kind of get that perspective shift the more time you spend like doing this, and then you kind of realize, right, what was the point of all that worrying and stress and beating yourself up when literally I took 2 trades and then eliminated like a month's worth of losses, right? And and then that kind of extends to the rest of life. Something might be planned that you have, or you any sort of event that you're anxious about, or someone said something about you or whatever, and then you spend so much time in your head, and then when it comes to the actual thing, it's like you cakewalk it and it's really easy, and it's like, what the fuck was all that worrying for? And I spent a lot
Yeah.
of time like looking at Stoic philosophy and different types of spirituality when I was away from social media, and kind of calibrated my brain into this kind of, well, if we can be more objective about something, um, then you're going to ride through it easier, but you also need to be able to have that experience and the reference points to be able to back that up, because it's all well and good saying like, oh yeah, the good times come and everything will raise it. But if you haven't done that before, if you haven't had like a red month or a red week, for example, and then you've gone and recovered that very quickly, like every time you get into a hole, you'll think, oh shit, it took me 3 months to get out of that hole last time. Oh, I'm going to have a terrible time for the next 3 months. But if you've got those experiences where you've had a dip in the P&L and then you've brought it back very quickly, and you know how to bring it back very quickly, it's sort of like what you said. You'll see that you've taken a load of losses, or you're down a bunch of trades, and you kind of go, yeah, something needs to change here. I need to put like a stop loss on myself here to like just go chill out for a little bit. So I guess it's also just the reference points and like going through this enough times, right?
100%. And then also reflecting on it, right? And not just the ruminating, but especially now in this AI era, I think it's really easy to just download your data and put it into AI and kind of like have that conversation. It's just trading hygiene is such an underrated topic in general, that there's so much more that comes with it than just the chart and your emotions. There's like a lot of things that you can do to like improve over time. Like I said before, it is a business and you are responsible much more than you are in any other job. I think there's always, in any wagey job, or wagey sounds really negative, but any job for a boss or whatever, or even in your own company, you can always just, shove it to the side to someone else. But it's like, no, when you're in a position, you're in it and you have to manage it now. And how you do that has a lot to do with your habits. There's a very strong correlation, which is why I think this conversation is so interesting,
Yeah, for sure. I was, looking forward to it. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, with your regards to your day-to-day life, are you dedicating, like you said, you work out every day? Like, do you have a certain amount of time you spend on the charts, or is it very much dependent on, if it's moving, then I'm just glued to it? But even in those periods, do you have any non-negotiables which you're saying you're doing? Because I know you cook. Obviously, you put it in your profile, and I speak to Order and Flow. Don't want to say his name, but who's obviously a cook as well.
Yeah, he told me. Yeah. I mean, I'm not an actual cook. That was more of a joke. But I do cook a lot. That's like my passion. I love to host. I love to invite people. I live with someone that eats a lot. So that's definitely something that I can always revert back to, because like I said, it is to me a very low dopamine activity that is the opposite of trading. But to come back to your question, I'm definitely all over the place when it comes to hours spent on trading. Last 2 days, I was during the day outside swimming with my friends, and I haven't really spent any time on charts unless an alert pings or if I want to do like a quick update or just check something. But in those weeks that I was trading a lot and I got all those trades that I just showed you guys in the start of the stream back to back, then I'm like definitely very much glued, very much in Discord, sometimes even on calls with friends, just scouting things, like chatting with people. So it is very much all or nothing in that sense. And I wouldn't wish it any other way. I will say for the bull market, I'm a little scared in that sense because I feel very balanced right now and I don't want to lose it. On the other hand, there's also opportunity, and I feel like I really, really recharged myself mentally, physically, spiritually the past months and more than a year since, markets have been slower. So I'm very ready, but I also don't want to lose that balance. So that's going to be interesting. Maybe in another year we do a stream round 2 and we can see how we landed with everything.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we have one later in the month, don't we? With Kraken.
Oh yeah, perfect. But I don't think I'll be overworked by that time. I don't know if you're planning to dump the markets that hard, but let's see.
That'd be cool. For me, that'd be cool if it does dump. But let me ask you something as well, because one thing I do kind of struggle with since I've been back on social media, and I don't know if this is like a more personal issue, but I always I get that, the dopamine you get from being on social media and interacting with people and then having a group that you talk with and then having people who are waiting for your opinions on things. How do you, when you're like, okay, even if you're not trading, but you've still got all these other obligations, I mean, first of all, do you feel that sense of FOMO? Like if you come off of X and then maybe you put your phone down, you don't check it for half an hour, you like, oh, let me see what's going on with this, maybe not X, but another social thing. Do you have that?
I do.
You do?
I do, but if I have FOMO, of course, I think everyone does. But to me, it's because like I said, I do feel like I really curated my timeline and my circles. So if I have FOMO, it's either like I'm very reflective in that sense. If I feel FOMO, I will really go and sit down and look at the chart and be like, is this actually something to have FOMO over? Can you still see my charts? You can, right? Yeah. So it's like, for instance, this candle here, I actually painted out a little bit of a scenario that we would, have this reclaim and retest in the video from Tuesday or Monday. I didn't take that trade myself. So in that sense, I could have some FOMO over this, but to me, it's like I have to ask myself, is the FOMO justified? Like if, I would have painted out a scenario, let's say here, and then it went in a straight line up, then your FOMO is justified, right? But in this sense, like today, it's like, is it really worth having the FOMO over? I think that you should try to be objective. And if you constantly have FOMO over things that happened that you weren't involved in, then I'm sorry, but your system probably sucks. Because apparently there's something that you would have liked to trade, but then constantly you're missing out on. Like that is a data point, having that feeling, right? Because if you keep missing it, then you clearly need to change something about your strategy. So in my sense, it's often me feeling FOMO about something that I missed that was like, sure, it was worth it, but was it really like that much worth it? And other times when I have FOMO, I usually kind of just like get involved. But I think that's a really dangerous recommendation to make to newer traders because they might have FOMO over here, right, at the top. But for me, if you are able to make the distinction between FOMO that is worth it or FOMO that is not worth it, if the FOMO is worth it, then you can also see like maybe it has some legs and you just hop on that train. But if it's FOMO that's either not worth it because it's microscopic or because it's around the range high, then you should just tell yourself like this FOMO is not supposed to evoke this many feelings in me.
So you would recognize that and then just be quite strict with yourself and be like, right, I've got to go do something else then.
I mean, I try, of course, yeah, but sometimes I will fail. But I feel I've gotten better on it. Yeah, this bear market has been definitely the most peaceful one that I've been involved in, just because, I also had, I will say, I haven't really shared this, but I had a little bit of a health scare last March, so not this one, the one before, and it made me really cycle through the emotions of, not being able to be stressed. Even if I would have wanted to be involved, I simply couldn't, because it wouldn't be good for me. And I think that was kind of like a forced relaxation in that sense. And I think whenever you're forced to relax, maybe you experience that as well with your son, sometimes that is also a data point, right? Because you have to sit back and not be involved. And then, of course, you're still watching from the sidelines. And you notice that you will have the FOMO, but then you're not able to execute, so you don't. And then you can see that it wasn't worth it, right? So in that sense, you also become better at kind of like noticing that not all FOMOs are worth it. And also how nice it feels to sit it out and then be proven right. And saved yourself the stress and probably some money as well,
Yeah, it's I don't know. I guess maybe it's like a cycle thing with trading and life as well. I guess where you'll have these periods where everything lines up for you and you're able to like go through what you're having now, like a very peaceful period, and recharge and just kind of get a bit of perspective and context on how you've been like in the previous 6 months or whatever. I felt like I used to be really good at that, but again, it's just kind of finding a balance between running the social media and the trading and then like everything else. Yeah, it's just kind of personally it's a bit of a weird like transition period for me at the moment. But yeah, like
I totally understand. There's a lot of factors that come into play, so it's all, I would never be able to speak on your end. And I completely understand that, sometimes life is a bit more turbulent, managing a family as well. And I know from the content side, you want to put stuff out for your followers. I've definitely forced trades in the past just because of, people kind of like looking at me like, oh, when's the next thing? And you just want to provide for them. I have had so many people message me over the years, sending me pictures of their car. Like, I bought this car because of this and this trade. And it's kind of like really nice to read that. So, we're humans. So we're really, I think everyone can be a little bit sensitive to that as well, and then you want to kind of like show up for them. And as we said at the start, it can be super boring to preach the same caution and the same thing for all these months. So I understand that, if you're really into your content game right now, that is something to balance too, because that makes you involved with the markets. Like if you're making content on the current state of the markets, like you have to be involved. And therefore you're watching it, therefore you're pointing out scenarios, and then your brain goes like, oh, but what if I just take this trade? Maybe it's a really good one, and that's how it starts.
I think it's like anything, right? It's okay, you go through it, you have the problem, then you go, okay, this needs fixing, and then you put the fix in, and then I think this conversation is going a ways towards that for me anyway, just kind of to step back and go, hang on, let's just rearrange some things. One thing that just kind of randomly came up in my head when you were talking was about how long you roughly hold trades for. And well, yeah, I'll ask that and then I'll ask the next question, because if it's like 10 minutes, then it's a pointless question.
No, my trades depend on how much momentum I think there's going to be in the markets. A good example here with the Fartcoin stuff was that in this case, the trade that I took was, like I said, it's usually the ideas based on the one day, and then the execution and the strength confirmation will be more lower time frame. But in this case, it was a gap fill trade. which is the gap that you see between EMAs. More content on that as well in the Kraken series that are coming up. So in this case, it was very much me holding that until it either reaches there or it starts showing a lack of strength that I had detected. Sometimes it will take longer than other times, but this was very clearly something with a target because that is the whole idea of the trade. Usually with other things like the near situation from here, I think like my max upsides that because I sold like in clips was like 70%. The reason why I held it that long, it was not my initial plan, but on the lower time frame, it just really showed to have legs. I think as the bull market hopefully approaches and kicks in at some point, my trading duration that I hold it will extend as it did the last times around. I am fine holding things for days, weeks, months if it gives me a reason to. But like I said, I am much more an early cutter than a late cutter these days. So that will be like my stance. I think when you're an EMA trader, you have like a lot of guardrails to help you with whether you want to keep a position or not. This was a good example. You can see the purple trend really holding all that time, and then at some point the magic stops working. And of course, from the price action side of things, we could also see like some signs of weakness there. So yeah, the answer is not very black and white, but for now I would say days, but not weeks. And eventually I hope it will be weeks again.
And how are you when you're holding positions? Are you constantly checking them, or are you quite good at being like hands off?
Well, if I have a position open, I will have like 8 alerts in place. I'm like super neurotic on 2 platforms. Whether I'm checking it all the time depends on how much I'm up and how the trend is behaving. In this particular trade, it was giving me very little reason to check it all the time. I remember that I went on a little staycation with my partner, and that I was like super drunk and not paying attention to it at all. And I remember that was like, I think when like one of these crazy pumps happened, like one of the crazy candles, and I remember being like, oh whoa, I really didn't notice that. So that may be like very telling. But I will say, especially when it comes to things that are in profit, I will watch the emails and I will trail my stops under logical areas. And of course, you have to watch the lower time frame a little bit for that, So of course, I'm tracking, as I'm sure is everyone, but I'm not like constantly glued all the time. But of course, you also know sometimes when you're doing like some content work or whatever, you will have like your chart on one side and your other stuff on the other side. So in that sense, I'll keep an eye on it, but I'm not glued always.
Okay, interesting. Right, we've been going 1 hour and 40 minutes now. I think it's probably a good time to wrap this up. It's been really interesting to kind of see how you do things and chat to you about some of the other stuff outside of trading as well. So thank you very much for coming on, and I really appreciate that. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we cut this?
No, it's been a while indeed. I just checked the time. No, it's always nice to share and to also hear your side of things. Thank you very much for opening up. Appreciate the invite. And like I said, new series on EMAs coming very soon. So if anyone wants to check that out, feel free. And I hope that better times are coming for markets soon. That would be my send-off message.
One leg lower first, though. That'll be perfect for me. One leg
I
lower,
would
and then
love
good
that.
times.
Please.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time. Bye bye.